podcast. Tune in for the audio, or you can even watch back. Giving players all the props, or put them on blast. We don't give no hot takes, only talk facts.
We're giving all our devotion, riding high on this wave of emotion. Going all out, yeah, cause this is our time. No, ain't no stopping us till we reach the finish line. All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick. On fire, we're ready to fight. We'll bring the house down tonight. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick.
Play it on the car ride, play it when you lounge. X and O, you know that we can hold it down. Shout out to my man Sammy, got it off the ground. And to all the listeners tuned in right now, got debates, analysis, and speculation. This is sports talk for the new generation. You know where to find us, got a reputation. Sick podcast, your #1 sports destination.
Giving all our devotion, riding high on this wave of emotion. Going all out, yeah, cause this is our time. No, ain't no stopping us till we reach the finish line. All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick. On fire, we're ready to fight. We'll bring the house down tonight. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick.
S-I-C-K, it's the sickest podcast. Tune in for the audio, or you can even watch back. Giving players all the props, or put them on blast. We don't give no hot takes, only talk back. S-I-C-K,
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 S-I-C-K.
All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick.
S-I-C-K, it's the sickest podcast. Tune in for the audio, or you can even watch back. Giving players all the props, or put them on blast. We don't give no hot takes, only talk facts.
We're giving all our devotion, riding high on this wave of emotion. Going all out, yeah, cause this is our time. No, ain't no stopping us till we reach the finish line. All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick. On fire, we're ready to fight. We'll bring the house down tonight. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick.
Play it on the car ride, play it when you lounge. X and O, you know that we can hold it down. Shout out to my man Sammy, got it off the ground. And to all the listeners tuned in right now, got debates, analysis, and speculation. This is sports talk for the new generation. You know where to find us, got a reputation. Sick podcast, your #1 sports destination.
Giving all our devotion, riding high on this wave of emotion. Going all out, yeah, cause this is our time. No, ain't no stopping us till we reach the finish line. All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick. On fire, we're ready to fight. We'll bring the house down tonight. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick.
S-I-C-K, it's the sickest podcast. Tune in for the audio, or you can even watch back. Giving players all the props, or put them on blast. We don't give no hot takes, only talk back. S-I-C-K,
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 S-I-C-K.
S-I-C-K.
Turn up your volume. Because you're about to listen to The Sick Podcast. With Tony Marinaro.
55 seconds left in the penalty, a minute and 27 seconds left in regulation time. Boston 4, Montreal 3. Lafleur coming out rather gingerly on the right side. He gives it into Lemaire, back to Lafleur. Oh!
The sickest Montreal Canadiens podcast.
You're in the ball!
Sports entertainment like no other.
Rejoint, on lui fait perdre la rondelle, une passe devant. Et c'est le dégagement et ce sera la victoire des Canadiens. Coupe Stanley pour les Canadiens. Le 23e de l'histoire.
You found the dogs! John, you found the dogs! He found the dogs! And all together, they worked a young team to the top. And now, a 24th Stanley Cup banner will hang from the rafters of the famous Forum in Montreal. The Canadiens win the Stanley Cup!
Brought to you by Energy Transportation Group. Driven to be different. La Vida Tibi. Embrace your true nature. And Playground, your premier gaming destination. It's gonna be sick.
Marinaro, the Sick Podcast on this Wednesday, June 19th. Thank you for watching on YouTube, on Facebook, and on Twitter. The Sick Podcast, of course, brought to you in part by Energy Transportation Group. Once again, recognized as one of Canada's top fleet employers for the fourth consecutive year. The prestigious accolade underscores their steadfast dedication to fostering a workplace of excellence and opportunity, much in part to their exceptional team for their unwavering commitment and contribution. Energy Transportation Group is a top fleet employer. Also brought to you in part by La Bittt at Tibi, brewed in Quebec and a winner of a dozen international awards. La Bittt at Tibi offers quality microbrewery beers made with premium ingredients for everyone's taste. La Bittt at Tibi, embrace your true nature. And also brought to you in part by Playground. And Playground's Summer Million is the must-play poker event of the season, featuring 15 championship ring events, $1 million in guaranteed prize pools with a $500,000 guaranteed main event. Playground Summer Million Poker Series, June 20 to July 1st. Visit playground.ca for details. Without further ado, I'm going to bring him in. He was a collaborator most of the hockey season, on Wednesdays in particular, and he joins us again on this Wednesday from TSN, their director of scouting and hockey analyst. Craig Button, how are you?
I am good. And just to let you know, as we're closing in on the official beginning of summer, out here in Alberta, Tony, it's light till about 10:30, 10:45 local time. So if you see a little bit of light behind me, it's because it's still light outside. You can go and play golf. You can go play golf out here. You can start at 6:30 and get 18 holes in, because you can get right through to 9:30 if you're quick.
That's kind of cool. Craig, I look forward to seeing you in Vegas next week, and I want to let everyone know that the Sick Podcast with Tony Marinaro will be broadcasting from Vegas Wednesday night, Thursday night, Friday night, and Saturday night. So 4 nights of broadcasting. Also broadcasting from Vegas will be the Sick Podcast, the Eye Test with Pierre Maguire and Jimmy Murphy. I know Jimmy will be in Vegas for sure. And also broadcasting from Vegas will be the Recruits Draftcast podcast with Grant McCagg and Shane Gaumont. I know Shane will be in Vegas for sure. And of course, that's all brought to you and presented. The NHL 2024 draft coverage is brought to you by Betway, a leading global online betting and gaming brand. Follow your gut instinct. Go with Betway. Go on betway.com or scan the QR code to join the action. Must be 18 and over and play responsibly. Craig, everyone, you know what? The draft is one of those things that's circled on every hockey fan's calendar. And so is Craig's final list. And that final list is out. People have had a chance to see it on tsn.ca. And of course, everywhere, all over the internet. And so it's something that you and I are going to discuss today. We're going to discuss what happened there? We're going to discuss your final list. I just got this new mic, and I'm not quite used to it here. I'm not quite used to it, but I'll figure it out. There we go. That's a lot better. Why don't we bring up the list, Craig? And we'll start with number 1, obviously. Macklin Celebrini. This is a slam dunk, according to everyone. That I haven't talked to anybody who didn't have Celebrini as the number 1 pick, Craig.
He's the best player in this draft. And certainly, in 3-5 years' time, we might look back and go, oh, well, this player ended up being a little bit better. I'll get a little bit more into that when we start talking about the guy number 3 on your list. But, like right now, and you go by information, and scouts and NHL teams are trying to project out. But at this point in time, there is nobody that projects better than Macklin Celebrini at this point in time, and thus he'll be the first overall pick to the San Jose Sharks.
Ivan Demidov. Members of the media had a chance to see him yesterday, as a matter of fact, in Florida. Dan Milstein had, a camp himself where interviews were available. Teams were able to interview the players. You were able to see most of the players on the ice. Not Demidov, because, of course, he's rehabilitating from an ankle injury that he sustained in the final. But one of the things I saw out there yesterday, and I discussed it with Ryan Kennedy of the Hockey News, is that there was this doubt on them. One of the things we were hearing about Demidov was Demidov's 5'10", 5'11", maybe, but on the smaller side. Now, Ryan is 5'11", and he said yesterday, standing next to Demidov, he's convinced that Demidov is at least 6 foot tall.
I've been told by a number of people that the measurement will come in at 6 foot or better, and whether that's 6 foot and a quarter. But it's always fascinating to me how we get fixated on height. When I watch Ivan Demidov play, I don't see a player, whether he's 5'10" or 5'11" or 6 foot. I see brilliance. I see a talent just like Nikita Kucherov. That's what I see in Demidov. I may have said this to you previously. I think he's better than Michkov. I think he's a better prospect than Michkov. And Michkov's a really good prospect. This is not a knock on Matvei Michkov. But that's how much I think of Demidov. And I think that, when you watch him play, I don't sit there, oh, geez, wow, he's only 5'10", or he's only 5'11". I just see brilliance in this young player's game. And certainly, there was a lot of what I would call anticipation from the NHL personnel down there in the media, going to see these players. And, for a lot of the NHL teams, if not all of them, getting eyes on these players and seeing how they skate. Obviously, Demidov doesn't qualify because he is off the ice, as you pointed out. But to meet him, to hear him, to measure him, to just be around him. And I give Dan Milstein a lot of credit for, undertaking something so significant. And remember, the NHL teams are trying to build their confidence level in the players. They can look – anybody in the end will talk to you about 50 players. But as you're picking players, and you come to your point of picking players, you want to be really confident in what in who you're selecting. And I think this is just another step that Dan Milstein has recognized for his clients to help NHL teams build that confidence level.
I think the feeling a lot of people got after yesterday's Q&A with Demidov is that he's got 1 year left on his contract. He'll play it next year in the KHL. And then at the end of that season, he'll make his way down to the National Hockey League. But when he was asked about playing in the MHL yesterday, it was the only time he went to his translator to make sure he had the right words, or not playing in the KHL. And he said, well, it is what it is. How scared do you think teams will be knowing that Demidov will be in Russia? Demidov wants to come to North America, and the team that he belongs to in Russia may screw with his development, knowing that he's not going to stick around there more than next year.
Yeah, I think it's legitimate, and to what degree the legitimacy goes, teams are going to have to assess that. I know with Yaroslav Askarov, the goaltender, drafted by Nashville in the first round, and I know that he wouldn't sign a long-term extension. He wouldn't do it, and that did impact him. So there's a reality here is they didn't play him, and they kept him from playing, and that hurt his development. I know the Nashville Predators were thrilled to be able to get him back into a development routine because he's got tremendous skills. Excuse me. He's got tremendous skills. And, when you're not allowed to build those skills, and he'd go to the World Junior and he stumbled a few times. And it wasn't because he's not good. It's because his game wasn't in order. His game wasn't refined. So there is a legitimacy to a player going back to a specific place, where they have done exactly what you talked about. They did it with Askarov. And certainly, the Russian Hockey Federation is very proud of their hockey heritage. They see this as an opportunity to show off, how good their players are, and they are. We've seen this for years, and certainly it's the case with Demidov. It's the case with a lot of Salayev. Certainly, that is something that NHL teams are trying to get a grip on and trying to get a grasp on, because I don't think there's any question now. So I go back to confidence. It's not just confidence in the player you're selecting. It's also confidence that the player is going to be in a situation where he can develop, where you can see that development, where the opportunity for him to come to the NHL occurs at the time that you're expecting. And I think that all builds into the confidence level with respect to the NHL teams trying to navigate through that. I mean, there's uncertainty there, and anybody that says there's not uncertainty, I don't think is looking at it realistically.
You compared him to Kucherov. Based on that, the Chicago Blackhawks have to take Demidov at 2. I mean, let's be honest here, and I know it could be debatable, but the 3 best players in the National Hockey League this past regular season were Connor McDavid, Nathan McKinnon, and Nikita Kucherov. Those were the 3 best players in hockey. You compared him to Nikita Kucherov. Nikita Kucherov picks up between 100 to 130 points a year. That's quite the comparison.
Yeah, and I mean, type of player, if he can get to that level, he'll be a special player. He'll be a Hall of Fame player, just like Kucherov is going to be. You mentioned Chicago. First of all, where they're at in the building process, the rebuild, however you want to frame it, they're not close to winning. So they don't need a player to come into their lineup right now and get in there. So that's number one. Number two, last year they won the lottery and they were able to select Connor Bedard. They didn't win the lottery this year, but they have a chance to get a special player, a mercurial talent, a Kucherov type player. I'm with you. I know there's lots of defensemen in this draft, a lot of defensemen, but I said this with Scott Powers, who writes for The Athletic in Chicago, and I said there's a lot of good defensemen here, and I see a lot of good defensemen. Don't get me wrong, but I don't see Duncan Keith. I see good players that are really good and can really come in and even be top pair defenders, but Kucherov is an elite superstar. And for them to be able to come with Bedard and Kucherov or Demidov, I think sets them up in a big time way.
Tij Iginla, out of all the mock drafts that I've seen, out of all the scouting reports, top 20s, top 30s, I've never seen Iginla third. This is the first time I've seen Iginla third. We know that he made waves down the stretch. He had a real good playoff. He was scoring goals, really coming into his own. He moved up significantly on your list. Why is that?
Well, I mean, you continue to watch, and certainly Tij wasn't somebody that moved out of obscurity into a top spot on the draft. But this is where I think, you start to we're talking about fine lines here. And Jarome Iginla, and if you know the answer to this, I'll be massively impressed, as I often am with you.
Wow.
But do you know where Jarome Iginla was rated in his draft year in 1995, excuse me?
Well, you guys drafted him 11 with Dallas.
Yeah, do you know where he was rated by Central Scouting? 26th.
Wow.
26.
Yeah. Wow.
And it's very interesting because I had this conversation with Ian Mendez the other day. He asked me about Tij, and he said about 7, and he said there's a number of people that think it would be a reach at 7. I said, well, that's interesting because people thought we reached at 11 for Jarome Iginla. People thought that the Ottawa Senators reached at 4 for Brady Tkachuk. So really, I mean, the team has to take the player that they feel confident in and then celebrate it. We drafted Jarome 11th. And people thought it was a reach. Central Scouting questioned us about, not that we had to answer the Central Scouting, but great group of people. Frank Danello was running it at the time, and so we explained what we're doing. The best player in that draft, and it's not even close, was Jarome Iginla. And remember this, we projected Jarome to be a 30, maybe a 35 goal scorer, a power winger.
Yeah.
Boy, were we wrong. We weren't even good. Like, we underestimated. And as I continued to watch Tij, and I continued to watch him over time, I said, am I gonna make a similar type miscast and underestimate Tij? And basically I said, I'm not doing it. I see there are different types of players. I mean, we're talking about 29 years difference between draft years.
Yeah.
There's a lot of difference between these two players. But where there's no difference in them is the way they play the game, with their brains, with a competitive spirit. They play in the hard areas, and they're difference makers. And I just said, for me, that's the guy that and I'll qualify this too. On my list from 3 to 10, they could be interchanged depending on, you like this guy a little bit more, you like this guy a little bit less. They're all, in my view, really good players from 3 to 10.
Yeah.
So it's not like it's Macklin Celebrini. It's not like it's Connor Bedard. I think it's 1, and then I think it's 2 in terms of projecting.
Yeah.
That's how I feel about Tij.
So based on the people I've talked to and based on the research, and I'm not going to pretend to be an expert here on the draft, but I kind of look at the forwards and I've broken it down into like 4 categories. Let me explain. Demidov is, so Celebrini's going 1, so he's not in the category whatsoever because I'm looking at it from the Canadians' perspective and who the Canadians have a chance of drafting. Demidov is in another category by himself because he's just the best pure talent that's out there. Cole Yzerman is in another category by himself because he's the best pure goal scorer that's out there. You correct me if I'm wrong. And then, I put Iginla and I put Caden Lindstrom and I put Beckett Seneca and in another category. And then I probably put all the other forwards in the other category type of thing. And I said this about a week ago, and I said, if Demidov's not available because he's in another category, was the best pure talent, and then the Canadians have to draft one of any of the other players, if I was them, I think I'd draft Iginla. And the reason why I said that was I think he just checks all the boxes. And, you're watching the playoffs and you see how important talent is, but you also see how important character is. You see how important size is, but character is just the Canadians. They need some more Iginlas in their locker room. They need some more Iginlas on their team. And, Caden Lindstrom, I'm sure he'll have a great career and he'll probably end up being better than Tij Iginla. Most people seem to think that he is, or that he will be. But sometimes I'm a little bit scared when you're that big a body because you get by on physicality and athleticism and you kind of don't have to use the hockey sense and some of the other tools that you may have to use as much. Mind you, I thought the same thing with Slafkovsky, and Slafkovsky has shown that he's a really, really smart player for a big guy. But do you understand that school of thought, or do you kind of share it that when you're that big, you get by on physicality and athleticism like Lidstrom, and maybe you don't exercise some of the smarts of the game as much as you should? Or
Yeah, I think it's fair. I think that's a fair and accurate depiction of, when you're a bigger player at the younger ages, you can overpower opponents, and at times if you're not required to think, and this is where coaching comes in, even at younger ages, to help players understand, hey, listen, you're going to have to be able to not just use your size to advantage. You're going to have to use your brain. And I think Caden is a very, very good player. He's a different player than Tij. He's got more of a power game. When I watch Caden play, I've compared him in terms of a type of player to JT Miller. I'm going to play hard. I'm going to play skilled. I can kill penalties. I'm going to be a guy that's going to be a thorn in your side. And, Tij, he played center, when he was younger. I've only seen him play left wing. So I've never seen him play center. And I've seen him play left wing a lot. But Jerome has talked about him being a center. And Chris Millette, who's going to coach him in Kelowna, they're going to put him at center next year. And so you start talking about the brains, and I'm careful. So if he stays as a left winger, could he be like Gabriel Landeskog? I don't think there's any question that Tij could be like that. But here's where I've gotten with Tij if he moves to the center ice position, because I think he's so smart. Could he end up being a player like Sasha Barkov?
Wow.
Because Sasha doesn't have a lot of flash to his game. Tij doesn't have a lot, but they have massive substance to their game. And so when you have that type of flexibility that Tij has to be able to play left wing really well, and now there's a belief that he can move back into the center ice position and be really effective, that's a really good player. And I feel with Caden, and I think Caden might have as much upside as anybody in this draft. And we may be looking back in 3-4 years' time and saying, geez, like Caden is turned out to be really good.
Yeah.
If I had to use a comparison to the 1995 draft, I would compare, like, in terms of, and they similar, and they're in this draft. I think Caden might be more like Shane Doan. And Tij, like I said, I don't want to underestimate Tij. Underestimating Jerome is kind of a tongue-in-cheek exercise because we projected him for pretty good, but he was way better than we projected him. And so now that type of a situation, you got the big, strong. Shane was big, strong, rugged, hard. I think Caden is like that, but I mean, it's not close between Jerome and Shane when it's all said and done. And I'm not suggesting that it won't be close between Tij and Caden, but that flexibility to move and be different type of player that can impact the game in a significant way, I think Tij has those capabilities.
We saw Zeev Buium at the Frozen Four, his Denver team beating out Boston College and shutting them out in the final. He was incredibly solid at that tournament, so much so that you have him rated as your number one defenseman in the draft.
And I'm going to make a statement here. I am totally comfortable. Are you ever totally comfortable? Maybe. I am really comfortable feeling that Zeev is the best defender in this draft. I watch him control games. What's interesting, and the Montreal Canadiens fans are really fortunate to have Lane Hutson, who's an elite offensive player, and really runs things. Zeev Buium was the leading defense scorer in the NCAA this year. And, when you're up against the likes of Lane Hutson, that's a significant accomplishment. And, Zeev in a calendar year won the U18 gold in April of 2023. He won the World Junior in January of 24. He won an NCAA championship. His ability to control the game. I'm not necessarily thinking that Zeev will score as many points as Zane Parekh in the National Hockey League or even Carter Yakimchuk. But I think that he's going to be that all-around defender that becomes so critically important to a team's success. And as you pointed out, the skating, the thinking, the competitiveness. And the other thing about Zeev, he can play left defense or he can play right defense. That, to me, is a quality that's pretty significant.
About 6 months ago, Cole Yzerman, or 6 or 7 months ago, Cole Yzerman was probably number 2 on a lot of people's lists. Mm-hmm. And then he made his way down to like 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, even some 13 on some lists. And today he finds himself at number 5 on your list. Why was he able to make his way back up the list?
Okay. Have you ever heard my story about Mike Bossy in 1977?
I believe I did, but I'd love to hear it again.
My father was running Central Scouting at that time. Now, Mike's brother Pat coached me, and my dad knew the Bossy family very well. I mean, obviously, I because of Pat and everything that went with it. And Mike was a prolific goal scorer. So in that draft, Mike went 15th in that draft, and what ends up happening is that Mike was on a team in Laval that was middle of the pack, and there was a lot of questions about, how tough is Mike? How good is his defense? Bill Torrey, it comes up. So what really became a concern is when the Montreal Canadiens passed on Mike Bossy and took Mark Napier. So now it's coming down, and the New York Islanders are looking at 2 players. They were looking at a big, rugged winger. I believe it was from Western Canada, and they were talking about Mike Bossy and the elite goal scoring. Mario Saraceno's father, and you must know Mario, was scouting for the Islanders at that time. He just said, this Bossy is great. Anyway, so they're debating it, and now when Montreal went past Mike, there was a little bit of concern. So Bill Torrey came to my father and he said, okay, Mike Bossy's there. My dad said there's nothing wrong with Mike Bossy. He's an elite goal scorer. He's a great person. He competes. Don't worry about him. He put up with a lot. All he did was score 70 goals a minimum of 70 goals in his 4 years in the Quebec League. So Bill Torrey went back to Al Arbor. He said, okay, here's what we're debating on. We're debating between this big rugged winger from Western Canada, might be a 20-goal scorer, or Mike Bossy, who's a prolific goal scorer, but is not great defensively. And Al Arbor said, give me the goal scorer. I can teach him how to play defense. The rest is history.
Yeah.
And the same things I've heard about Cole Eiserman. So Cole Eiserman is and I agree with you, he's the best goal scorer in this draft. He's elite. And I start to think, you're not drafting Cole Eiserman to be a shutdown winger, to be Bob Gainey, just like you didn't draft Bob Gainey to be a goal scorer. So know what you're getting. I think Cole Eiserman's elite. He broke Cole Caulfield's record. But more than that, it was the way he went about it. I don't think there was any question that Cole Eiserman had the ability to break Cole Caulfield's record. But his coach, Nick Four, laid it out for him. He said, it's really clear. It's really, really clear. You can go for the records, or we can help you improve in different areas of the game to help the team be successful. And Cole Eiserman committed to that. He became better. I think he put some pressure on himself in this year's draft I told him one time, I said, Cole, if you're guilty of anything, you try to be excellent every shift. And sometimes you just have to manage the game that comes with maturity. Yeah. I think he's the best goal scorer in the draft. I go back to 1977 and Mike Bossy, and I heard the same things that were said about Mike Bossy are being said about Cole Eiserman. I'm not drafting him to play defense. I'm drafting him to score goals, and I think he does it exceptionally well.
Costa Helenius slipped a little bit in your list compared to the last list you had out before this one. And a lot of that has to do with the fact that Eiserman and Buium and Iginla obviously have found their way in the top 5. Talk to me once again about Costa Helenius and his NHL comparable.
I think it's Braden Point. I think he's a lot like Braden Point. And he's got these flashes of real high-end skill, and he's very skilled. But Braden Point's been a 50-goal scorer in the National Hockey League. He's been a player that has been a key player on Stanley Cup winning teams. And is Braden Point ever going to be a first or second team All-Star center in the league? No, he isn't. He's not going to be. And do I think Consta Helenius will be that? No. But I want Braden Point on my team. I want players like Braden Point. The vast majority of players, very few players in a draft are going to be all-stars, and let alone Hall of Famers. And that's not a knock on Braden Point. It's just that with respect to the league. And so I think Consta Helenius is a superb two-way player. He's going to put up points. He can score goals. He can make other players better. That type of player just simply doesn't come along very often, and that's my comparable for him.
Oh, we got something. You ready for this?
Yep.
Pierre-Luc Dubois has been traded
to
the Washington Capitals
for
Darcy Kemper.
Interesting. So, we saw Jacob Markstrom being traded today to the New Jersey Devils.
Yeah.
And so you would have to think in a goaltending market that the LA Kings were probably interested in Jacob Markstrom. And once Markstrom got traded, the LA Kings got to work. This just didn't happen right away. They probably knew that.
Craig, there was talk even at the deadline, whether it's founded or not, I'm not so sure, that LA was interested in Ullmark from the Bruins.
Yeah, exactly.
In return for Pierre-Luc Dubois. And, Pierre-Luc Dubois on that 8-year deal at $8.5 million per season lasted 1 year in Los Angeles after being traded there from Winnipeg. 1 year. What's
interesting about that is that, and Pierre-Luc had a poor year. There's no other way to put it. He had a poor season. There was even rumors, talk that the LA Kings were going to buy him out at 1/3 his salary. And, that would have been significant savings. So obviously now there's no buyout. Darcy Kemper has proven that he can be a really good, solid goaltender. LA Kings are a good defensive team. Goaltending has done them in the last couple of years. And so now you get to, the Washington Capitals are looking at Darcy Kemper as somebody that probably hasn't fulfilled what they were hoping for him to do there. To get a young player, Pierre-Luc Dubois, who now has to go and prove himself. Remember, they traded Kuznetsov. Backstrom's done. So now to get Pierre-Luc Dubois into a scenario where they feel that they can get him back up to the level that he's capable of playing at, because Pierre-Luc has lots of capability. But this year was a disaster for him.
Yeah.
Because honestly, there was nights where you watch Pierre-Luc play and you go, what happened here? What happened to a player that could impose himself in such a significant way just kind of vanish? And he did. He vanished.
Greg,
and so
I don't
interesting.
I don't like the move. I don't like the move at all. And I'm going to tell you why.
For who?
For the Washington Capitals.
Okay. Yeah, fair enough.
To take on that contract for the next 7 years for a player who not only underachieved in Los Angeles, prior to that underachieved in Winnipeg, prior to that underachieved in Columbus. He's been, unfortunately, a big disappointment to every single coach that's coached him in the National Hockey League. And I hope he turns it around. Really, I do. But I say this. The Washington Capitals don't win the Stanley Cup if they don't draft Ovechkin at 1, a generational player, and Backstrom at 4. So they had to do a rebuild and get lucky because there were some good players available for them when they were bad to be able to win the cup. They did their rebuild. They won the cup. They had their window of being a very competitive team. Rebuild again. Rebuild again. They probably don't want to because they have Ovechkin and he's tied up. I get it. But how did that work out for Crosby and the Penguins? That they didn't want to rebuild because they had Crosby and they said, you know what? We owe it to Crosby. We owe it to Crosby. They don't have a chance. They didn't even make the playoffs.
2 years in a row.
Yeah.
2 years in a row. And your point is fair. And it certainly is fair. And I think you touched on a key element to this. Ovechkin is there. Ovechkin's chasing the Gretzky record. And certainly the Washington Capitals are not ready to commit to a retool, a rebuild. And they have some good young players. I mean, Hendrix Lapierre is a good young player. Connor McMichael is a good young player. So I think they're adding now a player that's 26 years old. And you're right. In fairness to the situation, Pierre-Luc now, everything now is on Pierre-Luc's shoulders to go and prove that he is a better player than he showed last year in LA, and to show that he can be a dependable, reliable player. But the Darcy Kemper part of this also comes in too, trying to alleviate yourself with some salary. It would be interesting to see if the LA Kings are picking up any salary, because I believe
they're not. They're not. They're not picking up any salary. And by the way, interestingly enough, Pierre-Luc Dubois' no trade would have kicked in on July 1st. So before his no trade kicked in, 12 days before that, he's traded to Washington. And by the way, based on something here from Darren Dreger, he says another new start for Pierre-Luc Dubois, who apparently is very excited to be joining the Capitals.
Yeah, well, I mean, I wouldn't expect him to say anything less than being excited. But the Darcy Kemper thing becomes a part of this too. So the Washington Capitals are saying we're going to move on from Darcy Kemper. You know, this is what ends up happening. I don't want to be. Teams are competitive, and you're looking. You talk about Crosby's competitive, like I want to win, and you sir Mike Sullivan's competitive. I want to win, and you're thinking like, well, geez, we got to do everything we can to win, and it's hard. It's hard to sit back and look at it and go, you know what? I know we want to win, but we're not in a position to win. And if we don't position ourselves now to try to move forward, we might fall back further. And I think that like we can sit here and look at it, and you're right, the Penguins have missed 2 years in a row, but that becomes a hard decision to make. That's just the reality.
Yeah. Other trades, by the way, for those of you who missed it, the Flames traded goalie Jacob Markstrom to the New Jersey Devils. And this is obviously good news for the Canadians, who have the conditional first-round pick in 2025 from the Monahan deal So if Calgary becomes worse, in the end, the Montreal Canadiens will end up becoming better. So it's been a pretty busy day in the National Hockey League thus far. Barclay Goodrow, claimed off waivers, leaves the Rangers and makes his way to San Jose. So we'll continue to have an eye on this as trades. By the way, this is another thing. I hate that trades are being announced during the Stanley Cup final. I hate this. If I would be the commissioner, you can talk all you want, but there's a trade freeze, and the window will open back up on draft day. This way, I got the draft being exciting. I'm announcing trades, and I'm making news that way. They probably think it's good because they're making news every day, but by the way, I stand corrected. The Calgary pick is protected, so that won't help the Canadians. It's protected.
It is. Also, I believe Calgary's picking up $1.875 million of Markstrom's contract. So there was something in there. Obviously, they have 2 picks in this year's draft. The Calgary Flames do. Looking forward to the next year's draft. How it all shakes out. I believe that Gary Bettman and the league have asked teams not to announce trades on the day of a game during the final.
Yeah.
To announce them on off days. You got to let teams – remember, there's only 2 teams playing in the Stanley Cup final. And so you got to let other teams do their business. And I think that I do believe, Tony, that the league and the teams have found a happy medium, so to speak, saying don't announce it on game day, but you can announce it on the off days.
Yeah, I hear you. But and listen, if they would have made the trade now, I mean, it would have filtered out anyway, even if the National Hockey League. So I get that too. But all right, okay. Let's go back to your list here, which is a top 32 list. And we're not going to go through all 32. Don't worry about it. Zane Parekh, most say that he's the best offensive defenseman in the draft.
Erik Karlsson. I see Erik Karlsson. And much like Erik, and the reason Erik went 15th in that draft is because of the same things, again, that you hear about Zane. Oh, defensively, this. Like, who puts up 96 points? Who puts up 33 points? It's exactly what I heard about the draft with Erik Karlsson. You know what's fascinating? Drew Doughty went 2 in that draft.
Yeah.
And the LA Kings took him at 2. They took Slava Voinov in the 2nd round. Do you recall? They traded up with the Calgary Flames to pick 13th and took Colton Tuberg. Can you imagine if the LA Kings had taken Doughty, Karlsson, and Voinov?
Wow.
Oh, my God.
Yeah.
So there you go. And Colton was he was a rugged type of player, and maybe they were looking at it in different ways. Yeah. But Zane's a good player. He's a really top-end player. And he's going to produce offense at the National League level. And what he did is not common. And I think he's an uncommon player. And I think that sometimes makes teams a little bit uncomfortable as well.
You have Lifshunov at 8. Some people have him at number 2. Why do you have Buium and Parekh ahead of Lifshunov?
I think Lifshunov is like Mo Seider. I think they're like a really good, solid player. I just think that and he's going to he'll be a top pair defender. And I don't have any doubt about it. Maybe he'll turn out to be as good as Noah Dobson. And Noah Dobson's turned into a really good player and a player that certainly projects as a number 1 defender. But at the same time, I don't see those dynamic qualities, whether they be physical or whether they be skill, in Lifshunov's game. I just see a really good, strong, effective player. And to be a winning team in this league, you need good, strong, effective players. And I think that's what Lifshunov is. And the special qualities, the Buium being able to play left or right defense, control the game, play in every situation, correct the offensive upside, that for me is the edge. But Tony, if you told me, hey, listen, Lifshunov is this, I would not push back hard on you if you said, hey, Lifshunov's the guy we want that can play those big minutes and really be a player that you can be fully confident in when he's on the ice.
A shout out to Mekamoto. They're a Moto Guzzi Piaggio and Vespa dealer. They've been around for 100 years. JF, their owner, has been around for the last 10 owning that store, which is at 4398 de la Roche. And on Thursday, June 27, they're having an all-day open house. Pop in to do road tests once again all day. Check out mekamoto.ca. I can tell you that I brought my Vespa there last week, and they gave it a real good tune-up, and it's riding better than ever before. All right, okay. Caden Lindstrom at 9, Sam Dickinson at 10.
Listen, Caden's a big, strong center. I said I think he's got a game like JT Miller. Any way you want to play, I'm happy to play it. And Sam Dickinson is like, if Sam Dickinson went second in this draft, it wouldn't shock me. I think I could make a case for Sam to be right near the top. I think he's Aaron Ekblad. I think he's got that type of a game. Aaron Ekblad ended up being the first overall pick. Aaron Ekblad is a really good, solid top pair defender. Aaron Ekblad will never be an all-star in this league. I think Sam Dickinson, maybe he will be an all-star. I just see a real strong dependability in his game, a real strong type of player that can, he's going to contribute offensively, he's going to play defensively, probably your second power play, good penalty killer, heavy player. And you need those types of players. You need those types of players to really carry play. And I think Sam can be that. But I don't see that special quality in him that makes him a standout player in one area or another. Just really well-rounded and really good and really competitive. But I can make a case for him being the second overall pick. It would be no problem. I go back to that draft. Doughty went 2, Zach Bogosian went 3, and then Alex Pietrangelo went 4. And maybe Lashunov is going to be more like Alex Pietrangelo. But we know Doughty's going to the Hall of Fame. Maybe there's a case for Pietrangelo to be in the Hall of Fame. But I say Mo Sider, maybe he's more like Alex Pietrangelo. I talk about Sam Dickinson being like Aaron Ekblad, who went first overall. Those are – and certainly when you go first overall, Aaron's going to be an all-star. Well, he's not going to be, and maybe Sam will be, but you need really good, strong. We had Darian Hatcher, who was our captain in Dallas, and a tremendous player and a tremendous force on the ice. And Darian's not a Hall of Famer, but he was an incredibly important player on our Dallas Stars teams, and certainly Sam will be an important player on whatever NHL team drafts him.
All right, okay, so that's your top 10, and now I'm just going to go through them very, very quickly. For those who don't have a chance to see it, you have Seneca at 11, you have Siliev at 12, you have Parasak at 13, Berkeley Catton at 14, right-handed defenseman Carter Yakimchuk at 15, EJ Emery at 16, Michael Bransek Nygaard at 17, Jet Luchenko at 18, Adam Juracek at 19, Stian Solberg at 20, Michael Hage at 21, who told members of the media that he's a Montreal Canadiens fan, by the way. 22, Mietinen at 23, Green Tree at 24, Shimshinov. Let me say that again. Chernyshov, is that right? Yep. 25, Sacha Boisvert. 26, Cole Hudson. 27, Trevor Connolly. 28, Cole Baudouin. 29, Wallenius. 30, Basha. Surin at 31, Richie at 32. I have Simon Snake Boisvert join me every now and then. He did some scouting in the queue. He's high on prospects. He's into the game. He believes Trevor Connolly is an incredible talent. But I've seen him way down on a.
I don't see him as an incredible talent. I see him as a second line winger, and he's a winger. He's not a center. He's a winger, and he's got skill. And I think his game is best forged from coming from that spot. And I'm talking about projecting into the NHL. He's a really good playmaker, given the opportunity to finish plays. And that's what I see. My biggest concern with Trevor is that, and certainly Trevor, there's going to be lots of questions. NHL teams have questioned Trevor on everything that's happened off ice and thing. And I think Trevor's handled that very well. My biggest concern with Trevor is I don't see him as a first line player. I see him as a second line player. And that's why I don't have him as high on my list as other guys. Like I see Jet Lutsenko as kind of a reasonable facsimile to Nick Suzuki. That type of smarts, that type of ability to control a game. I think that Trevor will be a solid NHL player, but I don't see elite, incredible talent in Trevor.
Craig, I look forward to seeing you in Vegas. Safe travels to you, and we'll talk to you then.
Should the Montreal Canadiens draft Cole Hudson?
I think the Canadiens are going to trade that pick.
Oh, okay. Well, maybe they'll draft him in the second round. Cole broke all of Lane's records at the National Team Development Program.
Wow. That's something. So maybe they should keep the pick after all. But I have a feeling the Canadiens who want to accelerate their rebuild are going to trade the 26th pick overall in the draft. They're going to trade a draft pick from another draft pick and probably a prospect, and they're going to try and go out and get somebody who makes them better right away. I could be wrong, but if I had to bet, I would bet that the Canadiens are going to trade pick 26.
Here's what I would say to you, Tony, and we're going to be in Vegas where there's lots of betting. I'm not going to bet against you.
We'll talk to you then in Vegas. I'll see you in Vegas. All right. Thanks so much.
Thanks.
There you have it. From TSN hockey analyst and director of scouting, Craig Button. Special thanks once again to Energy Transportation Group, to Bittt Tibi, to Playground, to Betway. And we are going to Vegas, brought to you and presented by Betway, our NHL draft coverage of 2024. Hope you like the show. Comment SICK, SICK. Share it with your friends. For Shane Gaumont at Master Control tonight, thanks for watching. We'll be back tomorrow night, and our guest tomorrow will be Simo the Snake Boisvert. Special thanks to Craig Button. Special thanks to all of you. Have a good night. It's the Sick Podcast.
And that's a wrap. Hope you don't miss us too much until next time. Follow the Sick Podcast with Tony Marinaro on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, Google Play, and Apple Podcasts. The Sick Podcast is brought to you by Energy Transportation Group, driven to be different. LaBita.tb, embrace your true nature. And Playground, your premier gaming destination.